And you're watching Morning Live. Thanks so much for choosing us. Now, court cases could be delayed due to a nationwide strike by employees of Legal Aid South Africa. And some legal aid staff, including lawyers, are set to be going on strike. Now, Legal Aid SA says that some of the issues under dispute include the reduction of a limited number of employee benefits, and that due to a severe budget shortfall. Also, there's questions around workloads and security-related matters. And joining us now to tell us more about this is Mfanafuthi Shabangu, who is the national spokesperson for Legal Aid SA. Thanks so much for your time this morning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's start here. These negotiations between Legal Aid and the employees, we understand, have been going on for some months, dating back to March. So what have been the sticking points?
Certainly, we have been talking to our employees, and like you rightly pointed out, because of budget cuts, we obviously are impacted, operationally as well. If I may give you an example, one of the benefits that they are talking about, which is group life. If you have a budget of 19 million, and you obviously offer that benefit, and the next thing you are told to cut by 5% by Treasury, and that amounts to 92.4 million, it affects that benefit. If you go to the next year, you have a lesser budget because of course, you've experienced budget cuts, And the service providers, on the other hand, are saying we are upping this service by 20%. It becomes unaffordable. And when you've got such budget cuts, which impact on operations, you've got a choice of sticking with the benefit as it exists, and cut staff, or retain your staff and right-size the benefit. Which thing management did was to say we want to retain our staff so that we service all the courts and are there in all our offices. So that is the current gripe, and the bone of contention, the biggest bone of contention amongst all the grievances that have been raised by our staff members. But there are other issues that you've raised, issues of security, for example, and those are legit. Yes, who wouldn't be perturbed by the situation when around your offices, people, there are gunshots. Perhaps an example in point, Belleville office, there's a gunshot of somebody who is alleged to have been in our offices, comes out because of gangsterism, he's shot outside the office, not inside. Another case in point, Kimberley office, one of our employees comes out of our office, which is at the third floor of a building. He goes to ground where we don't have an office, he gets marked. So you would be concerned, of course. But we are tenants, in such buildings as well. And the landlord has promised that he'll provide security. And now we've got to look into that as well, come into that. But that also impacts on the kind of money or budget that we have. Can we do everything at once? We cannot, but we can safely say, as we speak now, all our offices have got panic buttons, which when pressed, the reaction will come from the local service provider of security. So those are the kind of issues that we need to sit around and talk about. As we speak, we have been talking, an audit has been done around security issues. And of course, procurement processes will happen, but we still have to find the money to implement all of such things.
So as you say, the grievances are legitimate, but you have constraints because of budget cuts. But how is this going to impact, this impending strike? And you were telling me there have been new developments. So will there be a strike today, or has it been called off?
As far as I know, it has been called off last night. And of course, our practitioners want to go back to work themselves. And the impact of the strike has been minimal, predominantly concentrated in Gauteng. We had around 35% when the strike began of the impact negatively impacting the courts. But by yesterday, because not everybody had gone back to strike, others were back at work, the impact was minimal. So in the lower courts, it was around 4% that was negatively impacted as compared to 8% when the strike began. So we are hopeful that we will see our practitioners at work today, and they will catch up with the backlog that has been established there.
So we know the country as a whole, everybody is dealing with these budgetary constraints across the board. But given that you agree with your employees that their concerns are legitimate, have you taken this up with the minister? Have you taken this up with Treasury in terms of what can possibly be done to rectify the situation?
Always. It is our first point of call, and because of our pedigree, this year we've received our 18th unqualified audit, which is also clean. They know how money is spent within legal aid. So we always go to the minister, we always go to the DOJ to say, here is our plight, these are the constraints. And in terms of operational costs, we've cut to the bone ourselves. Our fleet, for example, which gets renewed every 5 years, the lifespan of the fleet is increased to 9, for example. The hardware in terms of computers, instead of replacing it after every 3 years, it's now 5 years, etc. So we've cut to the bone. And yes, previously we had a positive response where DOJ came in and put in a hand in terms of money, but it wasn't enough also to cover all our operational costs.
And just looking at the impact once again, we've had some clients complaining about the attitude, the indifference with which they are met by some lawyers. Have you noticed a decline in staff morale?
The staff morale, certainly. I wouldn't say, the decline of the staff morale has been huge, but certainly in some pockets of our operations, there has been some staff issues and morale, of course, and that impacts on the service that we kind of offer to the public. But we want to believe that, when we start talking again and addressing the issues that have been put on the table, certainly the staff morale will be boosted. And our employees fortunately like what they do, and they definitely do want to help the public. So much as there might be some staff morale issues, we want to believe that it is not as huge as one might want to say it is.
Because our producers did speak to some people who make use of your services,
yeah.
And what came through as a common thread was almost that people felt that they were being treated indifferently because they are poor and they don't have access to lawyers whom they can pay for themselves, and therefore they are being treated rather shabbily in some instances by some of your staff members.
Whilst that might be the case, I don't want to believe that it is a blanket kind of practice around our operations or lawyers. We've got positive stories coming from the members of the public. If I may cite one example, we've got a Mr. Ibrahim who took to social media after he was convicted for murdering his own son, all right, because the son was a drug addict, and one of our attorneys handled the case from there, and Mr. Ibrahim had a lot to say, thanking our practitioner, who is a female, thanking her for listening to her in the first place, and trusting her for what she heard from him, and of course taking his case seriously. And as a result, Mr. Abrahams was acquitted. So we've got such cases and many others where people thank us for the services that we render to them. And whilst I say that, yes, there might be pockets of such indifference, certainly that is not what you want to see, from our own employees. And even going forward, we think that when engaging and have engaged our employees, the morale will be boosted, of course.
What sort of recourse does the public have if they feel that they are not being adequately represented by members of a legal aid?
It starts with me as a walk-in client, or even calling to say, thank you for the advice that you gave me, but I don't agree with it. Can I speak to your manager? Can I have a second opinion? Not walking out of the office without registering your complaint, basically. So that's where it starts. And the manager will be called, the office manager, and if not happy about that, that matter will be escalated to a provincial executive and further on to other executives at the national office. So there are steps that the public must be aware of. If you are not happy, don't walk away without registering your complaint. Please do register it, because it helps us as well to up our game in terms of servicing the public.
And then one of the other issues as we wrap this up is, of course, the issue of backlogs in court cases. Just how severe is that particular scenario?
Our courts are inundated. That is a fact with matters. And in terms of our operations, we do monitor the workload that each and every practitioner carries on a daily basis. So before somebody goes out to court, we know exactly how many cases that person has. And of course, if there's an overload, that person also can speak to the manager to say, I've got a lot of cases, and those cases will be spread to and shared amongst the colleagues there. We also have another system that we operate, that we use, of what we call Judicare, which is comprised of attorneys not full-time employed by legal aid. So we are able to alleviate the work and spread it across as well. But certainly there is no way that we can allow a situation where we overload our practitioners, because that compromises the service that we will render, of course.
And as it stands right now, has there been an impact in this regard whereby cases have had to be postponed because of the deadlock, the impasse between yourselves and your employees?
Certainly there has been. There has been, predominantly here in Gauteng. But we are proud to say also that our managers did leave their offices to attend to those cases. Also, because we were served with a 48 notice prior to the strike, we're able to talk with the courts as to how can we put in place contingency plans so that we deal with the situation that we are faced with. We are happy that perhaps the strike is resolved or has come to an end now, and our practitioners will go back and deal with the backlog.
Thank you so much for stopping by. We certainly will try and confirm that with the employees to get their side of the story. So that will still come up here on Morning Live at around 7:10. But thank you so much there to our guest this morning. And that was, of course, Mfanafuthi Shabangu. And he is a national spokesperson for Legal Aid SA. And, of course, we'll confirm whether this strike has indeed been averted in about 10 minutes' time. Right now, though, it is time for us to go.